Welcome to another episode of the Live Happy, Healthy, and Inspired podcast. The podcast all about learning how to live a happy, healthy, and inspired life. I'm your host, Brad, a once upon a time overweight, lethargic, low self-esteem couch potato that turned it all around. My mission now is to empower you, the listener, with the strategies, tips, and advice for what it takes so that you too can live happy, healthy, and inspired. Are you ready to break free from sugar addiction and take control of your health? In today's episode, health and wellness coach Christine Trimpe shares her powerful story of overcoming morbid obesity and transforming her life by tackling sugar addiction. Key takeaways from today's episode include why sugar is more addictive than you think, practical strategies to overcome cravings and build healthier habits, and the holistic health benefits of a sugar-free lifestyle for your mind and body. Be sure to listen all the way to the end when Christine reveals her most important piece of advice for breaking your sugar addiction and living a happier, healthier life.
Welcome, everybody, to the podcast again, another episode. I'm your host, Brad, and with me here today is Christine from just north of Detroit, Michigan. Christine, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Brad, thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here with you today.
This is going to be fun because we're going to get into your story a little bit, and it's about sugar and sugar addictions and your weight loss journey and overcoming all of that and some of the health issues that you dealt with. For anybody listening, I know I've had that. Sometimes we say like sweet craving or sweet tooth craving or something like that. I had my own sugar addiction, but Christine, take us back to the beginning where you were at the start of your journey and your sugar addiction. Who were you then? What was going on in your life?
I always love to start at my turning point moment. So
Okay.
about 9 years ago, right now, we're recording at the end of October. So 9 years ago in October 2015, I was on a 25th anniversary trip with my husband, and we went to the Rocky Mountain National Park. And I was so excited to go there because I love the mountains, my favorite landscape, and my husband's never been there. So extra exciting to get him there. He planned out a lot of hikes for us, and we were at the Bear Lake stop one morning. If anybody's familiar with that, it's amazing. There is a very level, flat hike around the lake, about a mile long, and I did that without any trouble. And then he said, "Let's go up to Nymph Lake." So we went over to that trail marker. I looked at the trail marker, and it was, I believe, a half a mile to get to Nymph Lake. And I thought, I can do another mile. But I looked up and the trail went like straight up.
Okay.
And I was like, oh no, this might not be good. So I gave it my best effort though. I started up that trail with him, and about halfway up, Brad, I was gasping for air, sucking in air. And I told my husband, I said, I just literally cannot go on. I cannot take another step. And the reason being is because at that time I was 100 pounds overweight with a lot of chronic health issues mounting, like pre-diabetes, and unbeknownst to me at that time, in that moment, fatty liver disease, pain
Oh,
and inflammation, all of the things that go with carrying an extra 100 pounds. So I had to sit on the stump on the side of that mountain path, and I had to sit there frustrated, feeling a ton of despair, just feeling the weight of the heaviness of my 30 years of self-inflicted health issues that kept piling up. And it was in that moment that I really did have a it's time to take ownership moment. And I just remember saying a simple prayer like, God, I just want to feel better. I had no expectation that I would ever lose weight because I had tried to do it for 30 years. But now I can look back on that moment, and that was the turning point where I was able to come home from that trip and begin this amazing sugar-free journey that I've been on.
wow, that's incredible. So continue on then. What role does sugar play in this, and how did you, I guess, eventually break through that addiction then?
Yeah, so in that moment, in the 30 years that I struggled with yo-yo dieting, I never would have called myself a sugar addict. I never even thought of that, or food addict, which now I confess I'm a recovering food and sugar addict. So I came home from that trip with a new resolve because for some reason I was finally tired of
I know what it's like to struggle with weight loss, lack motivation, and feel lost with no purpose. I've been there. This was me, overweight, unmotivated, and battling low self-esteem. But I took back my life, and now I'm here to help you do the same. My book, Take Back Your Life, is your guide to breaking through these challenges. It's time to reclaim your health, motivation, and self-worth. Readers are saying, a life-changing guide helped me find my purpose and the boost I needed to transform. Start your journey today. Let's take back your life together.
Disappointing myself, disappointing my husband, sitting on the sidelines of life, which I had been doing for decades. And so I resolved that I was going to go home and I was going to make a doctor's appointment that I had been putting off for years. Because my husband said, we're in Colorado. We live at like 0 altitude, and we're in the mountains of Colorado. And apparently my snoring got a billion times worse. So he said, your snoring's really bad here too. And I felt really bad for him in that regard as well. So I resolved that when I got home, I was going to schedule a sleep study, which I'd been putting off for years. And I did. That Monday morning. I took the first available appointment, had that sleep study. Yes, was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea, knew I'd be coming home with the CPAP machine. And that really just got my interest going in what exactly is going on in my health. Why have I failed for so many years at all of the dietary mantras that I had been trying to follow, like eat less, move more, calories in, calories out, everything in moderation? What is going on? And shortly after that obstructive sleep apnea diagnosis, I also had an abdominal ultrasound because I was having painful ovarian cyst. And it was discovered in that ultrasound results that I had fatty liver disease. So that's really what sparked my interest in discovering why my liver was full of fat, going down rabbit holes, reading. I remember reading somewhere, I did not bookmark it, but one thing I read, one major takeaway that really impacted my next steps was reading that sugar is a major hormone disruptor. And so that's where I began to face the fact of how my diet, even when I was following, for example, like a Weight Watchers plan, how my diet was still loaded with sugar and how that was really keeping me obese all those years.
Yeah. Let me jump back real quick because you said something that was very interesting that, for almost 30, better part, I think you said 20, maybe 30 years that you had failed. Nothing had really seemed to work and that you didn't have that resolve or conviction to see it through. What do you think was going on then? Why do you think you failed so many times, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, I do believe now in hindsight that I failed all those years because I was addicted to carbohydrates. I was addicted to sugar. I was addicted to food because I would try, for example, like I think the biggest lie in my life was everything in moderation. And they talk about, every diet program I was in, everything in moderation. So what would happen to me as someone who was addicted to food and sugar, if I did eat, for example, if I did eat a piece of chocolate cake. Now I wasn't one to like eat a lot of sweets. I typically went for the savory things. But for example, if I did eat a piece of cake, I would have this urge or this sense that I needed to eat a second piece of cake later on after everybody goes to bed. It's, I call it my secret eating. So everything in moderation just really did not work for someone like me who was, first of all, I was physiologically hooked on sugar. My brain was
Yeah.
screaming for it. And psychologically, I was comforting myself with sugar, carbs, food. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer in treating my body whole and healthy now. But now I look back and I realize like how much I was comforting myself with food, trying to regulate my emotions with food, and it was absolutely the worst thing I could be doing. But yeah, physiologically, psychologically, emotionally, I was using food as a coping mechanism. And unfortunately, physiologically, I was also addicted to it. So it seemed like there was like sometimes there was no shut off valve, if that makes sense. I could follow a weight loss program for weeks and months and never deviate. But then if I just fall into that everything in moderation, this one thing is going to be okay. That's how I found myself going off the rails so often, how I find my coaching clients going off the rails all the time. So yeah, it was just overall, I call it just the food behaviors that I had that were keeping me stuck and trapped in those decades of obesity.
And so you went hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park, which I grew up in that area. That's a beautiful place. And you had your kind of come to Jesus moment, I guess, as they say. And then you came back and you scheduled your sleep study appointment and you read this book about sugar and hormone changes. And so how did your life begin to change at that point then?
Yeah, so like one of the first things I decided to do was to quit sugar. It took me a couple months to get there. So I got the fatty liver diagnosis about the end of 2015, and it wasn't until March 10th, 2016 that I declared I'm quitting sugar. And the first thing I did was cut coffee. I quit coffee cold turkey because I was having a little bit of coffee with a whole lot of flavored creamer that was loaded with sugar. So that was my first step. And just over a couple of weeks' time, I just cut more of the sweet stuff. Like then I swore off the treats in the office. I swore off the candy. I swore off it seemed like every week we had somebody's birthday celebration in the office. So I just started, walking away from the sweet stuff and then reading ingredient labels for anything. There's sugar in so many factory processed foods. So
Oh,
just started doing that. And I started feeling better. I started not having daily headaches. I stopped having monthly migraines. I stopped having eruptions of cystic acne, but my weight loss was still very slow. So I still continued on these rabbit holes that I was going down about and what's going on with my metabolic health. I'd been told for so many years that I had metabolic dysfunction or metabolic syndrome, but the doctors never really explained more about that, like what was going on with my blood sugar, what was going on with my insulin hormone. So I discovered that insulin's our fat storing hormone. I discovered that it'd probably be a really good idea to stabilize that. And on January 13th, 2017, I landed on just through a random Google hit about fasting and hormones, I landed on a life-changing website that introduced me to the ketogenic and fasting way of life. And I knew that that's exactly like that was the missing piece of my puzzle was I needed to go even further steps in eliminating sugar from my way of eating. And at that time, I was still eating things like bread and pasta and potatoes. And as soon as I eliminated them, that's when the weight started coming off pretty quickly.
Oh, okay, okay. Uh, Back real quick, the sugar part. So your kind of strategy for, I guess, breaking through your sugar addiction was just kind of baby steps, eliminating just a little bit at a time until gradually. I don't think it's possible for anybody to be 100% sugar free all the time, but so that you're pretty well sugar free then at that point.
Yes, especially from the sweet stuff. Like that first 10 months, it was the baby steps to get off the sweet stuff. After about 3 or 4 weeks, I really did notice like I am no longer craving sugar, no longer craving junk food, no longer craving, snacking in the evening. So it really was important first steps. And that's how I coach too. I truly respect people that can go all in on day 1 and be like, I am just eliminating every source of sugar in my diet.
What I
But
did,
I think,
basically.
yeah, okay, great. But I think a step-by-step approach works. Like it gives the women that I coach, it gives them some momentum. Like I did this for a couple days. Now I can do this. I can take the next step. I can do this. So I do want them off sugar within a 2 to 3 week time period. But yeah, just step by step, eliminating things. I love the momentum that it gives us.
Okay. Let me ask you this too. So during the course of your, 20 plus years that you were, not successful, and then all of a sudden you became successful, what would you tell someone right now who is where you were 20 years ago about all of this?
Yeah, I would really encourage you to look deeper and do a deeper dive and educate yourself on metabolic health. That is something that was missing in the years of dieting that I did. I was even in a 10-month long hospital supervised program where I drank nothing but liquid protein shakes for 10 months to lose the weight. And I did lose quite a bit of weight in that program, but now looking back on the ingredient labels for those shakes, they were still full of sugar.
Yeah.
And when they put me back into eating real food, like the maintenance mode, they called it, they started introducing things like whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread, half a sweet potato, things like that. And as soon as I started reintroducing food, I started putting weight back on again. And it was really devastating to me because here I had adhered to this really strict diet for 10 months. I didn't cheat. I'm very good at following a program, but then reintroducing these foods high in carbohydrates were devastating for my metabolism. And what I have found for myself and the women that I help is that we just have similar metabolisms, unfortunately, that just can't process all the excess carbohydrates in our diet. And some of us do very well by lowering the carbohydrates, lowering the sugar to, a lower level than what the standard American diet calls for. So, and you can learn all that by just learning more about metabolic health and how to get healthy, how to balance your blood sugars, what your insulin hormone is doing, and just, getting all your hormones in balance and in check is very powerful way to approach your health.
Yeah, and I'll just say real quick, anyone listening, do your homework on that hormone insulin. That is a key factor in a lot of this, and we don't have time to go into all of that.
Mhm.
Be like 5 other podcasts, but insulin
Right.
plays a critical role in a lot of this, and it's important that anyone listening that you understand about insulin, what it does, how it can actually cause you to be more hungry and eat more and things like that. So
Yes.
many things I want to ask you, Christine, but let me ask you this. So you slowly weaned yourself off sugar, kind of baby steps there. You eliminated carbs. I want to get into that a little bit too, because I know there's a difference between a complex carb, a processed carb, and a simple carb, like you'll find in a banana or something like that. But what role, any, did exercise play in any of this? I haven't heard you mention any of that at all. So was that part of
Oh,
your journey, your recovery plan?
yeah, that was part of the other dietary things that I used to follow was to eat less, move more. And
Yeah.
I would sign up for aerobics programs and I would just be so frustrated because the weight loss was so slow and I wasn't getting the results I would expect from, joining a program. And I remember being at my cardiologist. Now, I have a cardiologist specifically for the reason I don't have heart disease, but my dad and my brothers do. So this cardiologist wanted to follow the whole family. And so he just finds it intriguing to track me now too because of my lifestyle. But I remember telling him shortly after I ditched that coffee and creamer in June of 2016, I told him I was on a quitting sugar journey and he was like, "Oh, that's amazing." And so we started talking about exercise and he said, "I just want you to keep doing what you're doing with, the choosing proper nutrition." And he said, once it's 95% what's going in your mouth, and 5% you're going to want to move your body because you're just going to feel so much better. And he was absolutely right. As soon as I shed a little bit of weight, probably about another 20 or 25 pounds, I I just naturally wanted to start moving my body. And I think fitness is actually one of the pillars of my coaching. Fitness is important, especially for the women I coach are mostly my age, like premenopausal, postmenopausal women. We don't want to lose it, right? So moving your body is super important. I love my fitness routine now. I go to a boot camp 3 times a week and just still very active. I'm able to get up off the sidelines of life now and be active and climb mountains. I'm back to climbing mountains, which is my true passion.
Huh?
So fitness is really, really an important part of this process. I don't think it caused me to lose a dramatic amount of weight, but it has helped me gain strength and stamina and endurance and balance and agility, all of those things.
So what are your eating habits like today then? And you just mentioned like boot camp three times a week, but what are your like exercise habits like? And then do you also incorporate, I don't know, dancing or yoga or gosh, there's so many modalities out there, but do you
Yeah,
incorporate anything else?
right. Yeah, I specifically go to a Fit Body Forever boot camp, which is designed for women ages 55 and up. And I love it because it does strength training, it does cardio. I have a dog, a husky, who needs a lot of walks. So he gets a lot of walks. And then any opportunity I get to go to the mountains, there are no mountains in Southeast Michigan. So I have to travel to go do that. But every opportunity I get to do that, I love to do that. So yeah, that's my typical routine. And as far as food, when I was trying to lose weight all of those decades, I was always told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And so I would eat a bowl of, for example, when I was in the diabetes prevention program, I would eat a bowl of oatmeal with some blueberries in the morning when I wasn't even hungry. So now my breakfast time, I typically get hungry around 11:30. And so I eat about 11:30. That's where I break my fast. And then I'm hungry again around 5:30. So I eat supper. And then after that, no snacking because I've eaten a fully protein focused, satiated, satisfying dinner. I don't need to snack because I'm not hungry. So I really had to develop that level of not only being able to identify true hunger, but also incorporating self-control sometimes too when you'd be tempted by foods. But overall, I follow those natural hunger, and it's hormonal too. Those hunger patterns that we have are hormonal. So around 11:30 and 5:30, eat a protein-focused meal, very low carb, and that's how I roll every day.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Christine, but you're describing it to a T. The when principle of eating, WHEN,
Mm-mm.
when hunger ensues naturally.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what you just described. Yeah, and
Yeah. I've never heard it said that way.
two meals a day. Not to get off topic, but when you get a chance, check my book out. I would love to hear your insights. We have a lot of similarities and a lot of in a lot of ways, but it's very interesting. Like I always say, there are many mountains, there are many paths to the top of the mountain. So your path and
Mhm.
my path are very interesting. But I want to get to one question you asked in your bio here, or that I want to ask you for the listeners. Where did it go? What are some practical steps listeners can take to start breaking destructive patterns? So, what are some of the steps that you took, and what are some steps our listeners can take?
Yes. First of all, I encourage everyone to, evaluate and examine where you are with your health. it Everybody comes to me because they've seen like this massive weight loss, and it gives me an opportunity to have really great conversations with women in particular. Why I love to make like why are you here? How did you get here? Like, let's just break it down and stop to think about this, because if they're anything like me, they would typically put it behind, like they would put it in the back of their mind. Like, I know I should do something about my health. Well, as things start to pile up, we can really examine like, how did we get here? And what's the next step that we have to take? I am a big advocate of setting small goals and starting out on small habits. I always say that small habits build and deliver big results. So just like, again, the step-by-step method that I coach women through, just building these small daily habits and sticking with them. Again, having the resolve. You have to have the resolve. You have to show up for your health and have this resolve. But small habits are the way to go. And again, I respect people that dive in and do it all, quitting the sugar, but you still have to build new habits. Even if you go hard day one and like, I'm eliminating all sugar, being sweet sugar or savory sugar, whatever the form of sugar, you still have to set and start small habits as far as your food behaviors and your food timing and like what you were talking about, all of those things, and your fitness. So I'm a huge advocate of small habits, if that makes sense.
That completely makes sense. And so let me ask you this, Christine. You've been on this journey for roughly 10 years now. You've lost the weight. For those that don't know, you've lost what, about 100 pounds now? Is that it?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
What's been, well, gosh, a bunch more questions I want to ask you, but let me ask this first. How have you kept it off? So many people can lose weight, but they don't keep it off. So what's your secret sauce for sustainability, as I like to call it? Not just about losing the weight, because almost anybody can lose the weight. It's keeping it off for the long term. So what's been your kind of secret sauce there to make the journey sustainable?
I would say, first of all, hugely key was crushing those sugar cravings. So again, eliminating the sugar and quieting the noise in your brain. That's exactly what happened to me. And now, as someone who's been trained in food and sugar addiction, just knowing that physiologically we can quiet that food noise. And we do that obviously by unhooking ourselves from sugar. So crushing the cravings was key. That was really instrumental. And I did not know what I was doing when I set out on this journey, right? I didn't,
None of us do.
it's so much hindsight. And it's like, wow, it's like mind blowing. So that's why I love to coach women, because I'm like, I want to cut your time in half or in by 75% of how to get there quicker than I did. But as far as the sustainability goes for the weight loss, this is the first time ever I've maintained a weight loss in my previous 30 years of dieting. And it is because I can't unsee what I see now about my metabolic health. I know now that sugar is poison to my body. I know that my metabolism will reject it. I know if I start eating bread, potatoes, and pasta again, that I am going to regain the weight. I'm going to put my blood sugar out of balance. I'm going to whack out my insulin hormone, and I'm just going to go right back into the reverse of where I came from. And I don't want to do that, because I'm living healthy, happy, and more joyful right now than I ever have lived in those 30 years that I was, suffering in silence. I was suffering mostly in silence because I like to appear like a happy person, but deep down I was really struggling with carrying all that extra weight.
How would you compare the person you are today to the person you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Yes, my one word is joy. I had no real understanding of true joy. I always say my friends and family would have described me as a happy person, because I always like to put on a brave, happy face, like nothing's bothering me. It doesn't, but I was really quite carrying the heavy weight of not only physical weight of 100 pounds of body fat, but just the emotional toll of it and the spiritual toll of it on me as, someone raised in the church. And I just walked in spiritual apathy for so many years. I never thought that God cared about how I cared for my health. And so just having this new understanding of joy, that's carried me through even the 7 years that I've been maintaining a healthy weight. I have been through some very significant trials in life. And that is that's the testimony right there. Like, normally, typically in my past, I would have turned to food for comfort and for coping, but going through a long season of suffering and still being able to remember, again, I can't unsee what I've seen when it comes to the reality of the food that I choose to put in my body to nourish my body, mind, and my spirit.
Yeah, as they say, food is medicine or food is poison, just depending on what
Yes.
variation you take. What's the biggest thing you think you've learned about yourself or about life and all of your journey? Just curious.
Mm. I have learned that we all have a purpose. And I never imagined that about myself. And now that I'm very active in a community of writers and speakers and health coaches, it's amazing to me to see how we can each use our stories to inspire others. Like, I used to live very self-focused. Like, I wouldn't talk about it a lot, but like, woe is me. I don't feel good. I just want to crawl back into bed. But now, like, I've completely changed. As like I always say, that God took this introvert and has now made her an extrovert. Like, I have to be an extrovert now.
Nice.
But it's just such a delight to help people out of this place of, I know mostly a lot of women might carry this, in secret a lot. Like, they don't want to talk about it. And I just,
Is
I don't
that
know.
is that because they feel shamed, or why do you think that?
Yes. Yes, when you are, especially by the time you get to be morbidly obese, you carry a lot of guilt and shame, and always constantly questioning, like, why can't I get this together? And for me personally, I was a career woman. I worked in corporate America for 32 years, and I was a top level manager, left corporate career to do writing, speaking, and coaching. And I always was like, I never felt like a professional woman because I just couldn't get this one thing right in my life. Like I could get everything else right, but why couldn't I get this right? And it's because I didn't know, I didn't have the knowledge of what sugar was doing to my health.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Christine, what would your biggest piece of advice to anyone listening be right now?
I would encourage you to that your health matters. Your health does matter, and you can change your health. You can, like you talked about, let food be thy medicine. It it's mind-blowing to me. Like if I had put myself 10 years ago today and said that I'm going to start eating more steak and eggs and more chicken and, lower carb vegetables, and I'm not going to have a cravings for potato chips or popcorn or, that piece of chocolate cake, I would have been mind blown. I would have been like, but that's just what we eat, right? But to completely change my way of eating because the impact it has had on my physical health, my emotional health, and my spiritual health, it is worth taking this really difficult journey. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it in any way, shape, or form. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. One of the hardest things I coach women through, but it is so worth it. The joy and the energy that you feel, the freedom. I love the freedom.
Let me
Totally.
ask, yeah, I'm just curious one thing because this was a big part of my journey. Do you ever find yourself every now and then just, oh, I can have this cookie with that has sugar in it, or do you ever find because it's for me, I found on my journey it's impossible to be 100% sugar free every day for the rest of my life. I'm like you said, there's a cookie at the office, or like I get invited to a Christmas party, or a Thanksgiving party, something like that. And a big turning point for me in my journey was when I learned to understand something about balance and trusting myself and trusting my journey.
Mhm.
So do you ever find yourself eating a cookie every now and then or something with sugar, and how do you deal with that so that you don't go back to the old you?
Right. Well, actually, this is all part of my hindsight too. I really love Dr. Fung, Jason Fung. Are you familiar with him? Dr. Jason Fung? Okay. He wrote the book called The Obesity Code, which was the first book I read to learn about how to help my health. And he has a philosophy like, it's your birthday, eat the cake, right? And so I did that for the first couple of years, but now knowing more what I know about sugar addiction, and food addiction, I really am very more cognizant of it and try to be more abstinent with it because it's just like an alcoholic. You wouldn't offer an alcoholic beer, a beer, like just one beer is going to be okay. But I do trust myself. I am at the level where I could have a piece of cake, like I had a piece of my daughter's wedding cake, and it didn't send me on a sugar binge.
Right.
But the way I coach, the way I want to encourage and help women is they have to know themselves. I know myself, I could have a piece of cake. It's not going to send me on a sugar binge. But I have clients that if they eat a piece of cake, they're having a 3 day, 3 week, 3 month, 3 year sugar binge. And they have to crawl their way back up again. And that's how addiction can work. So I just always want to be cognizant of that. And that's why it's really important to know yourself. And it's good that you know yourself, Brad, that you know that that's not going to send you off the rails.
No, but I learned it the hard way a little
Mm.
bit. Christine, this has been absolutely fascinating. Is there anything else that you would like to say today that you haven't had a chance to say about any of this?
No, I would just like to invite anybody that would be interested in a faith-based approach to crush your cravings and get off sugar and, achieve the weight loss that you've been longing for. I do have a free guide called Crush Your Cravings, and they can connect with me there, of which I think you're going to probably put in the show notes, all my links. I'm all over social media. I would love to connect with you there too as well, but
And
it is
then,
possible to crush your cravings. It is.
and then real quick, you have a book coming out. What's the title of your book and what's it all about real quick? And I guess it'll be on Amazon or
Yes, yes. My book is called Sugar Freed. Stop Losing the Weight Loss Battle, Start Gaining the Victory. It will be releasing on Amazon on January 21st, 2025. And I'm going to be putting up a challenge with that book as well for individuals to lose 25 pounds in 2025.
okay, very good. And do you have a website at all also?
Yes, website is under my name, ChristineTrimpe.com.
Okay, Christine. And again, anyone listening, I will put all of that in the show notes. Christine, thank you. This has been fascinating. I love talking with fellow health-minded individuals and coaches
Yes.
and hearing about their story and their journey. So been a true pleasure having you here on the podcast today. Thank you for coming and being here and sharing your story with us. For anyone listening, if you've gotten anything out of this episode, please do us a solid and share this episode far and wide. I'm in 56 countries right now. My next immediate goal is 75 countries. So the more we can share this, and unfortunately, sugar addiction is not limited to the USA alone. It is in other countries all over the world wherever processed food has gone, which is pretty much everywhere now. But yeah, if you could share this episode far and wide, and also if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button and leaving me a review on Apple or Spotify, I would sure appreciate that as well. Christine, again, thanks for being here. And for everyone else, as I always say at the end, live happy, healthy, and inspired. We'll see you next time.